Little did Daphne know, her crush on Matthew was reciprocated. He tried to impress her in any way he could. He was a scrawny boy, but was stronger than he looked. Matthew tried to make Daphne's life easier by waking up before her and cleaning up the chicken coops. He was never outside alone for long. Daphne would always join him before his work was finished. Daphne couldn't bear to be away from Matthew for more than a minute. As the months passed, it became more difficult for the two children to contain their crushes for one another. Matthew was still too nervous to explain the depths of his feelings for Daphne, so instead he would whisper how beautiful she looked every single morning. He was smitten with her, but was afraid it would affect their friendship. Those little compliments from Matthew made Daphne's entire day. She would smile the rest of the day as she did her chores. The words said by Matthew played in her head on a loop. With Sarah set to give birth any day, Lucy tried to get her friend to relax, but doing all the chores that required vigorous effort, like the laundry. She knew Sarah was stressed out because Atticus would not be here to help her through labor. One small victory Sarah experienced since Atticus left them was finally using the painting easel. Atticus never let her touch the easel, stating it was too important to him to be used. She now knew it was Tommy's. Sarah and Lucy spent much of their time in the warm sun. Lucy tried her hand at building a new bassinet for the new addition. Sarah let her creative side run wild. She was not the best painter by any means, but she had fun splashing the pretty colors onto the canvas. She and Lucy made the best out of their situation and had the most fun either had experienced in years. It was nice to have a friend she could joke with for hours and never grow tired of talking to. They would get through this together, and their children would be happier for it because their mums were tired. The day took a turn when Sarah began to feel the familiar pains of labor. Because of the tragedy with Charlene, panic seemed to set in before excitement. She just wanted a healthy baby, no matter the personal cost. Sarah explained to Lucy that she was in active labor and they needed to get ready for the birth. Lucy was nervous yet excited to deliver her best friend's baby. Both changed out of their clothes. Sarah's was damp because her water broke. Lucy changed because childbirth was messy business and didn't want to dirty her new dress. She checked on the baby's progress. Sarah still had a long ways to go before she was dilated enough to push, so Lucy suggested she try and rest. Lucy held her best friend while she attempted to take a nap. It was comforting for Sarah. This was the longest Sarah had ever labored. The sun had set and came up again. She was going on 24 hours of labor. Lucy suggested that they get up and move. Movement could help accelerate her labors. Lucy had been correct. As soon as they started to sway together, Sarah felt the urge to push. They swayed for a little while longer to make sure that the urge was real. She still had a ways to go. Daphne entered the living room to check on her mother. Sarah let her firstborn feel her belly. She and Daphne's relationship has always been complicated, but this brought them closer. Their family dynamic was finally a close one. Lucy had read somewhere that water helped with delivery, so she put together a makeshift pool outside. The warm water soothed Sarah's aching body. Sarah pushed for a long hour before the baby started crowning. The pain was excruciating, but the warm water helped the baby exit her body. Lucy coached her through each contraction. It was in these final moments before her baby came into the world when she cried out for Atticus. He was missing the birth of their child, and she finally decided that she hated him. She hated him for leaving, but also for making her love him even when he couldn't reciprocate. Sarah's motherly intuition was correct. She gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Sarah kept her word and named the baby Margaret Bennett. Sarah stared at her beautiful baby girl as Lucy cleaned her off and handed her over. She was perfect in every way. Sarah saw so much of herself in Anne. Her features mirrored her own. Sarah thought this was for the best. She didn't want her child to ever wonder why she looked like someone who wasn't there for her. It would take a village to raise this sweet girl, and Sarah would love her enough for 2 parents. This child was innocent and deserved the world. Lucy was so happy that she was able to help her friend bring the beautiful little girl into the world, and Margaret was already so loved. Matthew and Daphne made it a weekly tradition to sneak out of bed in the middle of the night and spend time together. They both loved their respective families, but they had begun to watch like hawks. Their crushes for one another had become apparent to their mothers and wanted to ensure that they were always under their watchful eyes. Daphne thought the whole ordeal was silly. All she and Matthew did was tell each other silly stories and speak about thoughts in their heads that they wouldn't dare tell another soul. Sarah was very happy to have another little girl to love. She tried to create balance this time around between her newborn and other children. She let others hold and care for Anne, unlike with the twins. Because of this, Sarah and Anne's only time to bond was during breastfeeding. It came naturally to, in which Sarah was grateful for. This was a bittersweet feeling because this was her last child. She tried to soak up every little moment. Lucy was extremely happy that there was another healthy baby in their unconventional family dynamic. She was also happy that she and Sarah could be proper friends who drank wine and had fun together. Lucy asked her best friend what she wanted her life to look like in 5 years. Sarah told her that she hoped she would eventually be remarried to a man that truly loved her and to be the best mum to her children. Lucy mirrored the same sentiments as Sarah. She too wanted to remarry and be the best mum to Matthew and Elizabeth. However, she wanted to join the workforce. She vowed to never rely on another man for money. The ladies laughed and joked about silly things their children had done throughout the week. Lucy changed the direction of the conversation by suggesting that she and Sarah go to the local pub. She insisted that they were not going to find husbands by sitting at home with glasses of wine in their hands. They had to put themselves out there and run with the opportunity their husbands gifted them. Sarah was admittedly a little nervous to go to the local bar with Lucy. Her only romantic experience was with a gay man. How would she know if a man was even attracted to her? She put on her prettiest dress anyway. Sarah tasked her eldest with watching her youngest so she and Lucy could enjoy a night out. Daphne took her role as Anne's babysitter very seriously. She watched her sleep for hours. Nervous she would let her mother down. She and Anne already shared a room, so it was easy for her to check on her throughout the night. Lucy and Sarah arrived at the Pelican pub in the middle of Henford on Bagley. They immediately made their way to the bar to order a drink. Lucy immediately noticed a handsome man sitting next to them at the bar. She struck up a conversation with him. She learned his name was Bradley Jacobs, and he was a traveling salesman. Sarah found Bradley to be very intriguing, and he wasn't too bad to look at either. He had a captivating way of speaking that made sense for a salesman. Both women were interested in getting to know Bradley better. Neither could tell which woman he was interested in, which made the conversations more riveting. Sarah really wanted Bradley to be interested in her, so she ordered another round of drinks for the 3 of them. Bradley excused himself to the restroom, so Sarah and Lucy gossiped about how good-looking Bradley was. As the alcohol coursed through her body, she found it easier to burst out of her shell. She transformed into a charming and vivacious woman who seemed confident in herself. She shared a thrilling tale about her childhood. She made Bradley laugh, and that brought her a feeling she has not felt in a very long time: butterflies. Bradley enjoyed having the 2 local women interested in him. He was running out of money from his sales, so marrying a local woman would help him gain customers in the area. He charmed both women, unsure of who to choose. Sarah excused herself to the bathroom but realized that Bradley was following her. Sarah didn't know what came over her. The alcohol coursing through her body, or her need to feel close to someone. She kisses Bradley. It was a simple kiss, but it rejuvenated her longing for love. Unbeknownst to Sarah, when she went into the bathroom, Lucy had the same idea and also kissed Bradley. The kiss was also earth-shattering for Lucy. When Sarah and Lucy returned home, they decided to sit on the porch and unwind from their amazing night out. Both had a pep in their step from their kisses with the traveling salesman. Sarah is the first to admit that she kissed Bradley. She details the kiss and the moments leading up to it to Lucy. Sarah expressed her desire to court him while he is still in town. Lucy listened intently, but on the inside, she was growing angry at her friend for the first time. Lucy exposed her kiss with Bradley and accused Sarah of trying to steal him away from her. Lucy and Bradley clearly had a connection first, so Sarah was trying to force him to be interested in her instead. They argued for a long time, until the sun was beginning to rise. They were arguing in circles and insisting their side was the right one. They begrudgingly decided that they would invite Bradley over for dinner to decide for himself who he would court. Lucy and Sarah tried to maintain normalcy for the children's sake, but they hadn't spoken to each other since their night on the town. Sarah was hurt that Lucy had tried to take Bradley all to herself, but she did not take that out on Elizabeth or Matthew. Lucy had the same idea. She did not have anything to say to Sarah, as she felt betrayed by her friend because Bradley was clearly interested in her first. Still, she helped the twins with flashcards to help with their speech. The children were used to being a merged family, so that is what Sarah and Lucy continued to do. Sarah realized that how they were currently living was not conducive if either woman wanted a husband. Their families would have to split once again, for the first time in a long while. Sarah had hope, if things went well with Bradley, and could have a strong father figure after all. Her children having a strong role model is what kept her pursuing Bradley. At the end of the day, she had to do what was best for herself and for her children. She hoped that didn't mean ruining her close friendship with Lucy, as she would do that if it meant her children were taken care of. Sarah and Lucy invited Bradley over for dinner a few days later. They didn't know how long he would be in town for and wanted to leave a lasting impression before he had to leave. Sarah cooked the entree and Lucy baked the dessert. Sarah desperately wanted Bradley to pick her. She hadn't realized how lonely she had been, and how much she longed to be embraced by a man. Lucy made her famous mud pie for the dinner with Bradley. Her grandmother had always said the key to a man's heart was through his stomach, and she intended to get Bradley's heart this way. She loved her friend, but she wanted to move on from her husband's mistakes, and to do that, she felt she needed to remarry. Sarah cleaned up after she and Lucy's messes and made sure the house was spotless for when Bradley would join them for dinner. She didn't want him to think they lived in disarray because of all the children. Sarah cleaned until the entire house was spotless and sparkling. She set the table with their nice silverware and placemats. Bradley arrived 30 minutes late for dinner. Sarah and Lucy had begun to lose hope that he would come, but their faith was restored when they heard a knock at the back door. The children needed Lucy's attention, so this gave Sarah the opportunity to talk with Bradley. Just the two of them. For the first time in her life, she flirted heavily, and it felt good because he flirted back with her. Bradley shared his desire to settle down in Henford-on-Bagley with a beautiful woman. He mentioned that Sarah would be a wonderful wife. This made Sarah's heart skip a beat. She wanted nothing more than to settle down with Bradley. Bradley said he would have to let Lucy down easy, which Sarah understood. When Lucy finally joined them, she was so happy to see Bradley. She gave him a long hug and complimented his outfit. Bradley did not say a word of choosing Sarah to her. Sarah announced that dinner was served and her house finally felt like a home again, with a strong man sitting at her table with her children. The meal was a hectic affair. Twins were grumpy, so Sarah and Lucy did not stay at the table with Bradley for long. Daphne tried to get to know the stranger a little bit better, but Bradley either ignored her or told her to stop talking. After dinner was over, Bradley asked to have a word with Lucy. He politely told her that she was an amazing woman, that he had a better connection with Sarah, or rather she needed him more than Lucy did. Lucy was upset and told him that she felt like he let her on from the very moment they met. She suddenly saw right through him. He did not want a love match. He only wanted a local woman for security. She was disgusted by him. Bradley lost his temper with Lucy, his true nature finally showing. He called Lucy every foul name he could think of. He told her that she was unlovable and would never find a husband that would put up with her. Lucy was not one to cower to a little man, even standing up to Tommy's father once. She called him a con artist and a terrible man. She promised that she would tell Sarah everything and run him out of town. Lucy got up to find Sarah, and before she knew what was happening, Bradley tried to strike her across the face but missed. Lucy was completely wrong about Bradley. He wasn't just a con artist. He was dangerous, and she needed to get her family far away from him. She packed her bags that night. Bradley acted as if he didn't have a care in the world, and he made himself at home. Sarah was a naive woman who would do anything for love, so she would not believe Lucy's recollection of events. Matthew and Daphne played dolls together as they watched the events of the night unfold. Matthew's mother was frantically packing their things and telling him to get ready to go home. The two children were devastated. Lucy detailed the events that occurred with Bradley and told her friend that she did not feel safe. She urged Sarah to ask him to leave because he would hurt her too, sooner or later. It was not about jealousy. It was about safety. Sarah knew deep down that her friend would not lie to her, but she couldn't bring herself to do as Lucy said. Bradley made her feel happier than she had been in a long time, and she didn't think he would do what he did to Lucy to her. Lucy's heart broke for her friend and those children. She wished she could convince Sarah of Bradley's evil side, or to take the children away from the danger. She had to protect her children first and foremost, so they parted ways. Even though Matthew and his family were moving back to their home, did not deter the young lovebirds from promising to stay in contact. Daphne told Matthew that she loved him before he left, which he replied the same. They would not be under the same roof anymore, but that did not break their strong connection. Daphne would miss him being the next room over so much. He was her safe space and source of comfort, that she stayed strong until he and his family left. Sarah and Bradley's romance progressed very quickly after Lucy and her children moved out. There was no roadblock in their relationship now, so they could be free and happy together. Bradley had practically moved in. Bradley's actions towards Sarah were very strategic. He knew the pathetic type of woman Sarah was and knew just what to say and do to get her to fall fast and hard for him. He projected that they would marry within the year. And aged into an infant, Sarah had been so caught up with Bradley that she forgot to savor Anne's newborn stage. She would never get to experience this phase again, and she was too distracted. Anne's infant trait is intense. Bradley and Daphne's interactions quickly became hostile, with Bradley moving in. He did not treat Daphne with any respect and often belittled her and insulted her. He hated the children, but thought Daphne was the most insufferable. He got enjoyment out of hurting her feelings or making her cry. He had Sarah wrapped around his finger so Daphne would not be believed if she were to ever tell her mother. Daphne despised the man. After Bradley had his fun with making fun of Daphne, he would banish her to her room without supper. Daphne felt like a prisoner in her home. She missed her daddy, He wouldn't have dared to ever say the horrific things that Bradley did. Having Bradley around made her even angrier at her dad for leaving. She felt so stuck and miserable. Daphne wasn't the only child that Bradley would terrorize when Sarah was not around. He would destroy the twins' toes while they were playing with them, and then proceeded to blame the broken toes on T. He bows when Sarah asked. Sarah was none the wiser to the torment Bradley was reaping on her children. In her eyes, they were becoming a big happy family. Bradley made her feel things that she only dreamed about feeling when she was married to Atticus. All of her dreams of being in love when she was a child were finally coming true. The intimacy between she and Bradley was much different than with Atticus. Atticus was gentle and tender, whereas Bradley was rough and selfish. Sometimes Sarah would have bruises. Sarah cooked her eldest child a cake. Daphne was aging into a teenager today, and Sarah almost forgot entirely. Bradley demanded so much of her attention that Sarah had little left for her children. Daphne blew out her birthday candles and wished for something terrible to happen to Bradley so he would cease to be in their lives. If not, she wished to be somewhere far away with Matthew. Anywhere but her house. Daphne's teenager trait is unpredictable. This meant that both her emotions and personality was all over the place. Her teenager aspiration was to have successful lineage. She planned to marry and have children with Matthew when they were of age. After 5 months of living with Sarah and her spoiled brats, Bradley thought it was a great time to take their relationship to the next level. He poured a glass of Sarah's most expensive wine for each of them. They sat together, just the two of them at the dining table, and drank their wine. Bradley asked to move into the living room as there was something important he needed to ask her. Bradley told Sarah to close her eyes as he took out a small box from a couch cushion. He got down on one knee and asked Sarah to be his wife. He told her garbage that he had heard other suckers say when speaking about the love of their lives. He felt little towards her, so he pulled from his experience as a traveling salesman to give his best performance. Sarah said yes as soon as she saw the ring. She felt so happy to finally have a man that loved her and wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. She finally had a strong man to father her children. Her life felt complete. Afterwards, Bradley asked his bride-to-be to dance. He was very proud of himself for pulling this off. Soon, he would have the deed to this land, infinite customers from town at his disposal, and children legally his own to torment. Sarah wished she had met Bradley all those years ago instead of Atticus. She wouldn't have experienced the heartbreak. Only the true love that Bradley has shown her. She felt lucky to be his future wife. Sarah had called down her eldest child to tell her the great news. Daphne had a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach that her life was about to get significantly worse. Daphne tried to keep things light-hearted as she mentally prepared herself for whatever her mother was about to tell her. She loved her mother, but saw how blinded she was because she was in love. She didn't see Bradley for who he truly was. Sarah could barely contain her excitement when she told Daphne that Bradley had asked her to be his bride, and she accepted. They would be a big happy family. Daphne felt as though she had been slapped across the face. Daphne lost control of her temper. She screamed at her mother that she was making a terrible mistake. She tried to get her mother to see the terrible man that Bradley was, but she refused to believe it. Sarah defended Bradley's honor and told her daughter that she needed to respect her future stepfather. Daphne could not fathom that man would legally be she and her sibling's stepfather. She felt disgusted and trapped. Daphne felt confined to the couch. She wanted to flee to her room to cry. Her feet wouldn't move. She openly wept in front of her mother, who said nothing. She did not comfort her or hug her. Daphne didn't even recognize her mother anymore. Weeks passed since the dreadful day of Sarah and Bradley's engagement. Twins' birthday came and Sarah did not bake them a cake. Daphne celebrated the twins' birthday. Edward's childhood trait is comforting. His childhood aspiration is to be the smartest kid in his class. Only as Robert was blowing out his candles did Sarah and Bradley come downstairs to celebrate. Bradley put on his best fake smile and celebrated. Robert's childhood trait is that he is a Capricorn. His childhood aspiration is to be a musical prodigy. The arguments between Daphne and Bradley had gotten significantly more heated since she had aged into a teenager. He started to threaten her with violence if she did not comply to everything he said. Daphne would never comply to anything he demanded. He also began to insult her appearance, telling her hateful things about her body and that no man would ever love her. Daphne held her own when Bradley was around. She would not allow him to view her as weak. It was when he left her alone that she cried. Her daddy would never make her feel this way. She had to get out of this situation. It would only get worse once her mother married him.